Hi, I'm Jana. I'm looking for... I'm not sure. I'm looking for a romanticist. Spend time at the fireplace.
Someone that's clean. Be clean, you know? I keep my car very clean, and I expect a man to do the same.
One who is charming, personable, doesn't smoke in my face.
I don't know, the type of girl that I'm looking for is one that's really attractive to me.
I'm particularly attracted to black women and women of different races. So if you like me, give me a call.
Some people call me sexy. Others say I'm sensuous.
I like an attractive woman, someone who might look like Christy Brinkley or Jacqueline Smith.
I decided that I'm lonely.
He's somebody that maybe even gets rough once in a while, you know?
Walking down the street or just going out for, let me take pictures of her with my camera.
I have 2 cats.
Bette Midler. I laugh hysterically at Bette Midler.
I am looking for a passionate yet permanent romance within the guidelines of safe dating practices.
Somebody that'll embarrass you by ordering too much food or, you know, somebody like that.
And my goal in life is to have my own religion.
Kind of your typical research mathematician, I guess.
Basically, that's what I'm looking for.
Hi, I'm Linda. Well, you know, when I'm not using my doctor and pharmacy to troubleshoot a large healthcare computer system, I'm over at the gym pumping iron or driving my black Porsche with the wind blowing through my hair and singing along with Anita Baker's Rapture of Love.
Thought I told you never to call me here.
A rose, okay. My name is David, and obviously I'm a bit weird, and that's for a good cause. I am not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about you, and if I talk about you, I think I'm going to talk about me. I am looking for the goddess. Are you the goddess? Who is the goddess? The goddess is the woman, is a woman, is any woman, is all women who have found themselves, both their left and their right. They're good, they're bad, they're male, they're female. It's an androgynous character. On the application for this, there's a question that said age. I said Aquarian. Aquarian is an attitude, isn't it? We having fun out here? Is everybody enjoying the tape? I think that I'm enjoying it. I've been watching this. I'm enjoying this. But I think that's kind of what I want to say, that I think it's time to quit talking about ourselves. And it's not time for me to talk about myself. It's time to talk to you. It's time to talk to each other. And I'm looking for someone who can relate to me on that level for what I am, as what you are.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a-blowin' reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. toot, a toot.
One of the most fascinating ways to look at phenomenon is through the lens of metas. Metas are omnipresent throughout every single environment and organism on Earth, and they're just like exceptional at showing through any fog of rhetoric and clear through any smoke produced by emotion about what's said to be effective versus what's actually effective. Given that humans don't have to optimize for survival in the traditional sense, like actively being hunted, hopefully, humans optimize for metas in different ways, like reproduction, or more accurately these days, trying to hot people. As a good current example, the looks maxing meta is huge right now, and looks maxers will claim that in many ways it has always been that way. That looks maxing has always been the dating meta. I would argue differently. This generation of men is optimizing for things like bone smashing in order to replicate a face that is naturally well built for fighting. It's purely an aesthetic emulation of traits that were correlated with survival success or good genes that women historically selected for. Even much of what is considered good looking for men today is downstream of strength or indicators of a good ability to defend their mate. Which we'll get back to in a second. But first, we're going to have to talk about rain. Though, in order to talk about rain, we're going to have to talk about sharks. So, do you know when you were a kid and you were taught that sharks could sense blood really, really potently in water, that it was really easy for them to detect? So much so that when you would go to the beach or something and you had a cut on your shin, you'd be like, actually, I can't go in the water because the sharks are going to eat me. So I'm literally going to just stay right here. Now, I obviously still got into the water, but in my mind, I would like constantly look down in the murky water because we couldn't afford good vacations and we're at these shitty beaches. But that's what I thought as a kid. I knew about sharks' ability to smell blood. That was their reputation. When you think about sharks, that's the thing, you know what I mean? But sharks' ability to smell blood has been measured, and scientists put it at about 1 part per billion. So it's a drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool that they can sense. It partially depends on how high of a level the shark is, but humans can also detect the smell of rain, and they can do it at a higher rate than the sharks. They sense it at 1 part per trillion. And when it... Huh? Okay, I've just gotten word it's 5 parts per trillion. The point is, though, is that humans can sense the effects of rain really well. Basically, a raindrop hits dirt or soil, there's some kind of chemical reaction with the bacteria there, and the water interacts with the bacteria. I'm just going to actually have this guy explain it.
When they get wet from rain after a period of no rain, they release this molecule as a byproduct of their metabolism. This molecule is so strong that humans have evolved to detect it as signaling bounty and crops not dying and end of famine and end of drought and all this stuff. And it makes us happy in some really deep way.
I could basically be Geralt of Rivia if I didn't have to, barring all the fighting and like sounding cool and being buff as shit and fucking sorceresses. But the smell part, right? If I had to track down a rain scent, dude, I could track that down for a villager.
Tuft of fur. Whatever lost it hasn't bathed in a while.
Me trying to track down your mom. So if you happen to find rain enjoyable, it very may well be downstream of your evolutionary biology that predisposes you towards liking it. In a similar way that you might have a natural disposition towards enjoying the look of a place like this over a place like this. Which I am sure you could find ways to intellectualize and poetically speak on the beauty of the former over the latter. But even so, that doesn't mean whatever markers you're selecting for there aren't downstream from some evolutionary meta that may have helped your ancestors survive and therefore are part of your unconscious, which allegedly is further down than your subconscious. It's basically your pre-programming from an evolutionary perspective. To be clear though, us liking rain doesn't necessarily mean that it gave us an evolutionary advantage. Even though that's kind of what I'm implying with this, all it technically tells us is that it's not a harmful enough trait, right? It's not sufficiently harmful that it would have needed to have been eliminated by evolution through the generations. But camels can smell rain too, and they live in some inhospitable places. So for this point, I'm gonna make some assumptions, and I'm gonna say that it might be evolutionarily advantageous for us to be able to smell rain. Or at least it was, but that's not exactly the modern use that you're getting out of enjoying rain. You like relaxing and reading a book by a warm fireplace and looking outside to see the rain hitting the plants and saturating them, making the outside more lush or green. Or maybe just hearing the comforting sound it provides, or feeling cozy and warm and protected indoors while it rains outside. Or it just looks neat and adds extra aesthetic pleasure to whatever you're looking at. Whatever. Pick one or multiple. But if somebody asked you why you like rain, you probably wouldn't cite that as just some part of a evolutionary reaction that is evoking warm feelings within you. You would cite the reason you enjoy it, regardless of what it's downstream from. So that phenomenon is what something like the looks-maxing movement attempts to use to their advantage. The implication behind this meta-emerging seems to be that because these things subconsciously influence choices, it can be exploited for gain while not being able to be countered or recognized easily. Like, it would be much easier if we were just able to recognize our thought process being hijacked by monkey brain for evolutionary and reproductive reasons, and then from there go, okay, I regard this person as a morally good agent, in large part due to the halo effect. So I'm probably over-indexing on their actions in a way that I wouldn't with someone that I wasn't attracted to. Now, while it is not exactly a revolutionary thought for me to say, hey, did you guys know that attractive people get pursued more when it comes to dating? It is important because we mentioned earlier not being aware of the cognitive processes that operate behind the scenes in order to subconsciously influence our views on dating. The entire reason for mentioning sharks in the first place is to show something that you have an association with. You think of sharks and their association with their ability to sense blood, as it is an integral part of their evolution in order for them to get meals. It is a part of their very life essence. And yet, we do not think of humans in the same capacity with their connection to rain. So, similar to attractive faces, when we talk about our love of rain, a lot of the time we're probably just pulling from the underlying unconscious reasons for loving it, and then making up our own reasons why we love it to feel logically justified to ourselves, because that feels really good. It doesn't feel good to have cognitive dissonance, etc. But men could give you every reason that they can think of for liking boobs, but a gay guy is not going to be reasoned into liking tits. In the same way that whatever feature that you find most attractive, you couldn't be reasoned out of. So people cannot be reasoned into or out of their baseline attractions, but they can logically justify them to themselves, usually only afterwards. And that gets us to the basically stated preferences that we referenced, which are lush livable locations, I'm sure to our deep lizard brain, but to us, very justifiable and logical reasons for liking it, right? And you could justify that not only to other people, but also to yourself of why you have those preferences. So you end up being able to logically justify something that you never really made a choice on in the first place. All of that leads us to traits that people select for that they are intrinsically attracted to, but outwardly have to justify in some way, which leads us to people trying to emulate those traits so they are selected for at a higher rate, which will lead us to simulacrums.
Now, this is a very important slide. Everyone focus on the apple. So, when you're eating an apple, you're not thinking, oh my gosh, it's so good that I'm getting these fruit sugars, this is really gonna help me survive, right? You're just thinking, oh, this tastes quite good. But the reason that apples taste good is because your primate ancestors who enjoyed the taste of apples had a differential advantage in the game of survival and reproduction. So they were more likely to pass on copies of their genes, and so you have their suite of emotions. When I talk about infidelity, right, and I talk about the evolved desires, that's very obvious to everyone, right? It's very obvious that, like, oh, the reason that I like apples is because my ancestors benefited from eating fruit and they were more likely to survive, right? Or they at least benefited from eating carbohydrates. That's something that's very, very intuitive to people. At the very least, they enjoyed eating calories, right? But it becomes less intuitive when we talk about sex. So people will say things like, well, when a man has an affair, he often wears a condom, right? And so he doesn't actually want to have additional offspring. So when we're talking about why emotions, instincts, drives why these things evolved, we're talking about the ultimate cause, not the proximate cause, right? The ultimate driver. So we're talking about how fruit sugar helped people survive back in the day, not how we eat an apple for, basically recreational purposes in the present.
You'll probably notice if you analyze it for a bit that there are cultural components of the meta too, and those, contrary to the genetic simulacrum that is often selected for in sexual dimorphism, the culturally contingent metas are constantly updating themselves in what they're being selected for. Here's a good example of one that seems like a cultural meta as opposed to one that is inherited via like some kind of mate selection unconscious process that's going on from your biology, okay? Being tan used to mean that you were a worker, a manual laborer. There's a bike passing by, so hopefully you can still hear me. It used to mean that you were kind of low status, right? You worked outside, you used your back, your arms, your shoulders, and you would do physical manual labor and therefore didn't get paid much because that wasn't like super high paying, and you weren't like the aristocrats who got to sit inside all day and be pale and, read and all these kind of things. So you were low status. And then everyone started working in offices and factories, and everyone was pale. And so being pale was no longer the show of wealth that it was previously, and that you had before it was like, I have the means where I don't even have to do manual labor outside. I don't have to go outside if I don't want to. I'll sit in this fucking castle all damn day, bitch. But now, now it had changed, and now everyone is pale. Everyone was inside because you're working in a factory now instead of in the fields, at least more common. There are still, construction workers and these kinds of people who work outside, but like the general populace significantly decreased in the amount of people who were actively outside working, right? It became more of an inside thing. So then, having enough leisure time to choose to spend time in the sun was seen as the high status thing, as opposed to previously, where it was like, if you're out in the sun, what are you, a peasant? I've heard similar things about lobster. Apparently this used to be a kind of like low-class food, and then it became a symbol of status to buy lobster, whereas previously it wasn't. So these things, these cultural metas for status or dating or whatever, are in constant shift, right? I feel like a similar shift might be on the horizon for the rich, where like they might significantly reduce their internet usage. I think that high status people, this is just a guess I have, but I feel like high status people will start to shift away from internet usage, or will become associated with high status people to choose to significantly reduce their internet usage to show that they're above all of the common man slop that is consumed by the masses. They're gonna be like, no, I'm not in that. I have my own shit going on where I'm out in the world. I don't even have social media. That shit's for the poors. I think that's coming. I don't know. We'll see. So going back to women's selection of men don't need hunter eyes to protect their mate. And even if liking, historically at least, liking that trait selected for eyes that technically didn't get hurt as frequently because there was more bone covering the area that would be in a fight, and so they were less likely to get hit in an eye, and so they were more likely to keep their vision, and so they were more likely to win the fight because their eyes are technically a little less exposed. Even if that all selected for slightly better outcomes. What are you doing, dog? Come here. Even if that all selected for slightly better outcomes, it's just a proxy measurement of either testosterone levels or an ability not to lose an eye during a hand-to-hand conflict. And therefore, it is apparently indicative of having a higher chance to win a conflict, which means a higher chance to carry on genes, etc., whatever. But it's not a direct measurement. All of that is just a proxy measurement. You're guessing that those traits are going to lead to better outcomes of fights, because historically, when it was two cavemen fighting each other with no training, that is probably what got decided. It makes sense as a theory historically that humans developed a tendency to use facial aesthetics or harmony as a proxy measurement for those good genes. But what if you were able to fool that intuition? Emulate those biological markers, get around it, and you get the benefits of the aesthetics without necessarily having to have the natural markers of those good genes that you would normally have. I said earlier in the video that I don't believe looks maxing was always the meta, and that's true, as looks maxing has a very specific definition that I don't think that early men were optimizing for, as they had very real concerns beyond aesthetics, but that doesn't mean that it won't be a huge part of the meta moving forward, because if something was revered as a feature of only the naturally genetically gifted, but that could be emulated, Well, then suddenly using attraction as a proxy measurement to select for good genes in the dating meta also becomes kind of vacuous. So now it is a simulacrum of a proxy measurement, meaning that people are using these purely as indicators of good survival traits and not some kind of objective metric, right? That's the proxy measurement. But they're not even selecting for the proxy measurement. They're selecting for a simulacrum of the proxy measurement, which gets weirdly abstracted from the original.
There's a number of ways to look at what I'm doing. The best one is that I'm having a vacation. And I have not really had a vacation in about 10 years. So I decided to do it musically. Seems like only yesterday I left my mind behind, down the gypsy cafe with a friend of a friend of mine, who sat with baby heavy on her knee, spoke of life most free from slavery, with eyes that showed no trace of misery. Phrase in connection first was she occurred, that love is just a four-letter word.
Filtering at the moment for me is one of the most interesting phenomenon of these dating metas. The vast majority of the population is simultaneously deathly afraid of being filtered while also doing incredibly heavy-handed filtering. The average person will go to insane lengths to accommodate for their crush, so much so that they will build an entirely alternate personality around a person that they like in order to avoid being filtered. But in their personal life, they will have intelligence agency levels of filtering themselves and security around who they allow access into their life, which makes for some interesting cognitive dissonance because for the right person, they will Splinter Cell, Solid Snake, James Bond, whatever you want to say, sneak past the security guards, cameras, lasers, trap doors, snipers, dogs, whatever way they need to, contorting their body into whatever form it needs to be in order to get access to the person they like. This is a metaphor, just meaning that they will contort their personality to form fit the person that they're interested in. Okay, but they would be appalled if someone did the same to them because that's the point of filters. Most of you would be a little weirded out if you found out that someone faked very important aspects of their personality in order to get access to dating you. And if you slowly discovered that they were nothing like that actually, and the person you're seeing is essentially just mirroring you back to yourself in order to gain access to you sexually or romantically, you'd probably feel a little bit weird about that. But you should want to be filtered, okay? Being filtered is good. No, nobody says that, but it is. Being filtered is good. Okay, and filtering is generally good. It's testing for compatibility. It's a trust system. Humans constantly lie on the trust system, I guess, but it's a trust system, okay? It's supposed to be like, if we are honest with each other, then we can truly see if we're compatible, okay? But the problem is the lying part kind of defeats the trust system part. In order for filtering to work, like if you wanted it to fix the dating marketplace, it'd have to be almost like a global warming type system where you'd be like, all right, guys, everyone has to do their part, which is just, it's not going to happen. Nobody actually wants to filter. Now, I know this sounds like it contradicts the thing I said earlier, because what I said earlier was everyone has these intelligence agency levels of filtering. And that's true, but it doesn't really matter because the filter that they put up, that filter is only for people that they already don't want to pass it or are indifferent about. It's not filtering out anybody that they are attracted to and interested in, but they know would be a bad match, right? Those filters just get bypassed. You could be like, okay, well, this person's obviously incompatible. Wrong. They're gonna do it anyways. There'd only be a retrospective analysis where it'll be like, oh man, I should have known this sign, and this sign. You did know this sign, and this sign. You just chose to ignore it. Because if they came across these red flags listed out in front of them on a sheet of paper saying, here are all the traits of this person, and then as they read through that sheet, they spot red flag after red flag after red flag, they would of course say, yeah, this isn't compatible at all with what I'm looking for, and then proceed to filter the person. But it's a different thing entirely than them seeing those traits manifested, especially within someone they are attracted to. Negative traits become romanticized in that person, and then their supposed filters are immediately bypassed. For example, think about how many of your friends you could reasonably expect to reject this woman and how many you can be sure would fold.
Help me. I'll let you do whatever you want.
Smile, please. The oversized canines could be a clue, but there could also be a natural explanation.
So we must look elsewhere. No, this creature, like any other, is definitely the work of our Lord. But for some mysterious reason, it seems God may have other plans with it.
Every single one of my friends would be a vampire. Make no mistake about it. If you're a woman with only women as friends, and so this example doesn't work for your friends, then replace it with a billionaire werewolf. It doesn't matter. My point is that you can't get people to commit on whatever they would say are filters for them. Now obviously these are slightly disanalogous because knowing that the person, or monster in some of your cases, is fictional makes someone much more likely to be attracted to them in spite of bad traits, because they know in all reality they'll never have to actually interact with them. Really, I should say they'll never get to interact with them because I believe that they would very much relish the opportunity to do so. But either way, it's just a fun, obviously hyperbolized example in fictional media to represent the phenomenon that I'm talking about. If you don't have real-life experiences of your friends changing their supposed filters solely because they find someone enticing or attractive, only to ultimately have the whole thing go down in flames due to the incompatibility, then we can just disagree on an anecdotal experience level. That's fine, I'm okay with that. But I will argue that mine maps onto reality more soundly than those who believe that not to be the case, to the point where there's even tropes in media that represent this behavior of people being willing to put up with increasingly toxic behavior the hotter the person is. But I think we've established that the attraction of somebody, or the attraction level that someone has to another person, can undergird decision making and make for all kinds of weird metas, like I mentioned in part 1, where you end up selecting for simulacrums of proxy measurements, which can be weird. That's all fine, but attraction isn't even necessarily the main problem with the dating meta right now, it's just one of the problems. Let's move away from attraction for a second and towards some of the other problems of filtering that I think present themselves in the dating meta that are influencing it in a very negative way. And the first example I'd like to start with actually isn't with people in the dating marketplace at all, but that are still within the purview of the dating meta. We're going to start with people already in relationships.
Let's hear from the top, every detail.
I think the best way to tell the story is by starting at the end, briefly, then going back to the beginning, and then periodically returning to the end, maybe giving different characters' perspectives throughout, just to give it a bit of dynamism. Otherwise, it's just sort of a linear story.
Humans are really adaptable, so much so that if a mudcrab from Skyrim spawned in next to you and clipped off your left foot, and then you had to get a peg foot, like a little wooden foot, you would be at regular happiness levels within like a year or two. Maybe not exactly 100% of where you were before, but really high. You have that adaptability. But that same adaptability can be used in a negative sense, in that it makes us very susceptible to being boiled like frogs. Which is to say, slowly. Because humans have a really hard time detecting incremental changes over longer periods of time. So something that can happen to exploit this is a partner acting worse over time by slowly sneaking their way into increasingly toxic behavior, either purposely or accidentally. But because they do that slowly, and it's an incremental change in the partner, and humans are very adaptable, and it's over a long period of time, they quickly acclimate to the new behavior each time, and it's such small changes that it doesn't immediately register as a yellow flag for their partner. Funnily enough, it means that the standards that someone would have for a new person can actually be significantly higher than the standards that they would have for their current partner. And to be clear, I don't mean like getting more comfortable with each other so you feel more secure in arguing with them or expressing yourself fully around them. What I mean is more so that someone's behavior can get more toxic without it necessarily registering to their partner as a yellow or red flag, whereas if they had seen someone in the dating marketplace exhibiting those exact same toxic traits, they would have filtered them for being incompatible. It's like a frog being blissfully boiled alive, who then looks over and sees a steaming hot pot next to him and says, "Oh, I would never get into there, it's too hot." Now, within this video, I'm trying not to do that many normative statements, but as a quick one, it might be worth re-examining your filters that you'd have for a fresh relationship while you're already in one in order to measure up and see if your filters are being bypassed by an already established partner. Overall, though, this is just one of many reasons why filtering is currently not working as well as it could, because filtering has high potential for helping the dating metas and changing things up and kind of setting things, I believe, in line a little bit, but it's just not really being implemented properly at all. Now, it could work if everyone did it honestly and consistently applied it even when they didn't want to. So they said, okay, I'm really interested in this person, but they are getting caught up in this, like flag after flag after flag of a poor match. So it's just not going to work. But that's not what people, in my experience, listen, I'm speaking for you guys here. Maybe you guys have friends who are, or like acquaintances or something who are doing better at this. Everybody that I see sucks at this. And then even worse is afterwards, they think that they need more filters when they're not even properly applying the ones that they already have in place. You probably have enough filters, you're just not implementing them with any degree of honesty or integrity.
Right here at the block with the homies. Say, what's up, boo?
Hey, what's happening?
Tap in with us. Where the bitches at, though? Yes, sir. We trying to kick it.
No bitches, bro. I told you this.
Why not?
Bro, my girl got you on there. I told you that.
Wait, so why haven't you blocked her from...
I blocked her already on my phone, but I can't do that on your account, bro.
What?
She see everything you post.
Oh.
Remember the last time you was mentioning bitches?
Uh-huh.
I didn't get in the fade, bro. She blacked my eye.
Oh, the homegirl abusive.
Yeah, bro. Abusive.
The homegirl domestic violence.
Yes, bro.
But fool, but your horse will be my horse and my horse will be your
We
horse.
won't have no horse if we both dead, bro. How the fuck we gonna play that role if we both dead?
Oh, she trying to 187 type shit?
Bro, double homicide. Yes.
Murder was the case?
Murder was the case.
The homegirl death row, but then just leave her, fool. She's probably weird, fool. She's a weirdo, fool.
It's like I'm addicted to this shit. I don't know. I can't explain it to you, bro.
You're addicted to bitches punching you in the face?
It's easier said than done.
Why are you scared of her? Bro, look at your face. You look scared. Girl.
Now, it certainly doesn't help that both men and women aren't honest. I was going to say completely honest, but I would say aren't honest almost at all about when they're disqualifying someone from their dating pool, because they'll come up with other reasons. We're going to get into that in a bit, but like 2 examples quickly just to ground this out is guys will often meet a girl who doesn't align with their beliefs, right? Because they'll be like, oh, this girl, she's way more of a partier, or she goes out, or she's had a ton of hookups. I'm not really into that. So men just never let these women know that their values are misaligned, which they aren't, by the way. They just have a cognitive dissonance about like girls versus guys sleeping with a lot of people, but they can't tell her that. So they can't tell her that they dislike that about her because they would lose sexual access to her. So out of pure self-interest, they fake accept her past and then like secretly disqualify her from treating her seriously as a dating prospect. So then they're filtering this girl, but the girl has no idea that she's being filtered, let alone why she's being filtered, even if she found out that she was being filtered, and therefore has no reason to change her strategies to find someone with more aligned values. But we both know that's not what would happen, right? More likely, just due to the same human nature that leads men to lie about that, the women would just lie and change their strategies to avoid being filtered by guys, which is exactly what I said earlier. Everyone's afraid of being filtered, even by incompatible people. I'm going to retry this take because I just realized that I'm talking and I'm going like this. So the thing about that is, and so on the audio, I don't know if this is going to be vary a lot. I'm not sure how good DJI mic is, so I guess we'll find out on the... This is the whole, like, when she says something that establishes to you that she's not your wife, they don't use the word establishes. That's like I'm doing 1779 memes. Like Thomas Jefferson was posting these. It's something like when she says fellas, once she says some shit that she's no longer your wife, whatever. The message that's being conveyed there is this person said something that made them disqualify, that made the guy disqualify the girl, but they don't tell her that because they would lose sexual access to her, and they want to, then they recategorize her basically, right? So they take her from like potential girlfriend, fiance, wife material, whatever, and they put her in like, okay, now this is just a hookup, this is a thing. And that's the whole situationship thing, usually from the guy's end. On the girl's end, when they disqualify someone, they will usually not tell an honest reason either. They'll give like the most, they're trying to be nice is what they're trying to do, but they'll give like the most surface level bullshit reason they can potentially give to disqualify someone without it being mean. So it'll be like, you have a dog and I'm more of a cat person. It's like, you would, if your celebrity crush had a cat and you were a dog person or vice versa, you'd work that out. You know what I mean? It's like fake reasons. Also, women are really bad about feeding into their friends' delusions about like, maybe he does like me or whatever. I think guys are a little more honest about like, hey man, I think she's fucking you over or whatever. This is the all roads lead to Rome thing that I talked about earlier about there being no disconfirming evidence. Meaning you could say, okay, this proves they don't like you, this, that, doesn't matter. There's something there, right? And girls are bad about feeding into other girls on that and being like, you just have to figure out the key to his heart. Like they're Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. What's on the map? It's a drawing of Benjamin Franklin's penis. You know, okay, what do the veins spell out? New Hampshire, sir. It's a clue. The founding fathers left behind a clue. Me just in the car talking to it right here. Okay. Like literally just talking, and I'll do because I'm going to introduce the subject, and then I'll do a later take of the stuff outside of it. We don't have to get that close. Okay, that's still too close. Okay. Okay, that's beautiful. Are you recording right now?
No. Am I?
I don't know.
Oh, I think I still am. Yeah, I haven't turned it off.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, that's fine. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
This thing's hard to keep on. Hold on. I got this. Hold on. Like here, or do you want to step out of the car and I can?
No, I'm gonna do that separately. Oh, okay. The out of the car. But let's.
What about if you sit? What about if you sit in the back seat and I get you in the rear view?
Okay, that's actually cool. Yeah.
If I throw my ND off for one.
This is going to be a really short take, by the way.
Should I have this zoomed out more?
Whatever you think looks best. I can't really see it. I don't know if I've already done this fucking intro because my writing is ass. While we're on the subject of filtering, let's talk about the... While we're on the subject of filtering, let's talk about the other big one that I see, which is a fascinating strategy going on. And that is filtering somebody and never letting them know why you're filtering them. It is almost always the case when someone is filtering another person that they tell them a non-offensive reason for filtering them instead of the real reason. So oftentimes it'll be something like, hey, I have a lot of classwork coming up. I really got to focus on school, so I don't think it's a good idea for me to be dating. Or I'm just getting over a relationship with an ex. Or we're a 2-hour commute away, so it's hard to date because it's long distance-ish. Any of these reasons. On the surface, it attempts to circumvent the problem we mentioned earlier regarding filtering because it seems that way. It seems like a genuine check for compatibility that the person is doing to ensure they're not wasting each other's time and to check that they are actually compatible. And that's also usually what the person is presenting it as, right? A genuine misalignment of ideals that breaks compatibility in a way that you wouldn't want to move forward with dating this person because you guys just aren't compatible. But that's not why the person is actually filtering. Not usually, at least. I mean, think about the reasons listed. None of those actually break compatibility. Those are just slight obstacles to dating someone. Like, imagine for a second if I was looking to date somebody, but then I said, oh, you know what? We're not even compatible. I just realized because this person doesn't already live with me, so wherever they are, I'd have to commute to see them. You'd be like, that's ridiculous. That's obviously a small obstacle, right? You're just making this an incompatibility. It's not a real incompatibility. If your celebrity crush or your dream partner were to say like, oh, yeah, you know, I get you have a lot of school, you'd be like, no, it's fine. You know what? I'll make time. And that's obvious. There is simply no way that they wouldn't just do a slight workaround in order to make it work with this person. They wouldn't view it as an incompatibility. They would view it as it is, as an obstacle, right? They would say, okay, Yes, I have classes. Yes, I just got out of a relationship with my ex. But I'll figure out ways to work around this because of how much I value this person. Nobody actually cares about driving 2 hours to their dream partner. People have taken flights to people that they're into less than their dream partner. The incompatibility that they're filtering for there is usually a physical attraction thing, sometimes a mental holdup. But either way, instead of telling the person the real, honest reason and being like, hey, I didn't like your personality that much, or hey, I'm not physically attracted to you. I don't believe that you're physically attractive, which obviously feel like very mean things to say. It instead becomes one of the things I mentioned earlier that are actually obstacles and not incompatibilities, right? So they'll say, oh, I can't because I have classes or whatever. Or at their very most honest, if someone's feeling particularly honest that day, they'll be like, hey, I didn't feel a connection, or you're not my type. Which is a non-offensive way to say it, a step towards being more honest with each other in general about why people are being filtered, and technically true as to the reason that they're being filtered. But it's a bit like getting rejected from a job for not fitting the company culture. It's better than being ghosted, but how don't I fit the company culture? Because in my mind, having access to information that is critical of me, but is your honest opinion, is an ideal that I would strive for in terms of information. That is the top of the line, right? I can choose what to do with that. I can say, okay, this information is biased or skewed or not relevant or inaccurate or whatever. Or I can say, oh, actually, this criticism is probably true. I do need to change this, whatever. I can pick and choose and not pick and choose on what I like to hear versus don't like to hear. But pick and choose in what I truly feel is accurate and account for it, take that criticism if it's valid and use it to change myself for the better, right? I can choose to act on whether or not I want to change those aspects of me, given that the criticism is good, okay? So you want that kind of good criticism, that good feedback, so you know what you're doing wrong. And then it's up to you to decide, like, actually, that's something that we're just misaligned on. I don't want to change that just because this person doesn't like it. Or maybe they point out something and you go, you know what? This is something I don't like. I do want to change this. I do feel like this isn't representative of me or who I want to be. So I'm going to change it. And I'm glad this person pointed it out or whatever. In my mind, that kind of critical information is super key. You want that kind of critical feedback so you can determine what the person you want to shape yourself into is from there. And you go, yeah, okay, I'm going to change this aspect of me, or I'm not going to. But it's up to you, and you at least have access to it. It's better to know than to not know in that case. But with that said, you're not my type would be acceptable if people had a consistent set of standards that they applied using certain traits as like a measurement, even physical, okay? I would accept that because I could see, oh, you like this eye color, this eye shape, this nose shape. It's consistent, and I could see that. And it wouldn't just be, as most people use it, a stand-in for physical attractiveness. Because what's actually being communicated with you're not my type 98% of the time, 95% of the time, in that range is, hey, I don't find you conventionally attractive, or I don't find you attractive. Conventionally is even adding another layer of softness to it because it's saying you could be attractive outside of conventions, which is like, okay, you could be, hey, just so you know, you could be attractive in spite of all the stuff that's fucked up with your face. It's like, all right, what a compliment. For the person who says, you're not my type, but what they're actually saying there is, hey, I don't find you physically attractive enough to date, that person is consistent in the sense that they are always going to choose the person who's more attractive, because that's more quote-unquote their type. But if you try to pin them down on what that type is to try to get an idea about what is the consistent metric that they're checking for there, you would be doing yourself a disservice, and that there's not actually anything there to measure. It's just going to be a proxy measurement for having good bone structure, right? It's going to be approximating being conventionally attractive. That's all. That's the measurement. That's the quote unquote type. Which is not to say that you can't have a partner that you're attracted to, because that would obviously be ridiculous. But it is to say that by using type in that way, type becomes vacuous because it's not actually a type. Your type is just hot, which is a category, but that's not what we mean colloquially, at least historically, whenever we would say type. We meant do you like blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes? Do you like blonde hair or brunette hair? Should it be straight or curly? These kind of measurements are typically what people mean when they are trying to ask about what someone's type is. So you know damn well when you say, oh man, like we were such a good match, but you're just not my type. What you're doing there is you are equivocating. You want them to think that you mean, oh, you have some kind of characteristic that I just never select for. When that's not true, you do select for that characteristic if it is in somebody that you are attracted to enough, if they have the underlying prerequisite bone structure that you need to be sexually attracted to them. In place of the example with hair type or hair color or eye color or hair texture or any of those physical appearances, this also happens for traits or characteristics or tendencies. For example, when a girl says, I'm not really into guys who play games a lot. Like, I don't like gamers, really. She's not talking about Vinny Hacker. She's talking about this dude, like, in her mind, or the average guy, or whatever. Any accommodation will be made with somebody as long as they're hot. Again, this is not a looks maxing video. This is just the way that things typically play out in the meta, and something to keep in mind as a translation whenever somebody says one of these things, okay? But I want you to think about this in the same way that I want you to think about corporations doing dumb shit. So you'll see something a few years ago, it was, ultra woke, and now it'll just be something equally retarded on the other side. But you'll see a company do something, and everyone will think like, how evil, this messaging of theirs, whatever. You don't have to attribute malice or nefariousness to any of these actions. What happened was somebody didn't want to say no to the idea in the boardroom that was going around, and nobody wanted to say it was a bad idea. Everyone was afraid to speak up, so they, kept their job, whatever. It's the same thing here, okay? It's not some nefarious behind-the-scenes thing to demoralize the public and corrupt their ethics. It's just cowardice. Someone had a dumb idea, and everyone was afraid to say that's a dumb idea. And in the same sense, it's cowardice here. It's not that they are evil and want people to have false mental maps of the world and reality, and they want to trick them so they have less of a chance going forward or anything like that. It's just cowardice. It's much more smooth to just lie to people and be like, oh yeah, you're just not my type, and you just don't make it your problem and you pass it on. It's easy to do. It's not evil though, or maybe it's even good for society. We'll get into that later about weighing out the pros and cons of that, because that is something I'm going back and forth on and having arguments with myself about. But as far as the my type thing goes, I would actually have zero problem with it if it mapped onto reality even 50%. And not just using it as a placeholder that makes the term my type completely vacuous and not attached to any real meaning of the original use of the word at all. I'll demonstrate this real quick because it seems like most people don't have an actual type they're referring to when they say my type, but I do. For example, in 2013, a film called Wolf of Wall Street releases, and at the time, I remember my friends telling me how hot Margot Robbie was in the movie. And then we're talking about the movie, and I'm like, yeah, honestly though, I know that him cheating on his wife is supposed to show his descent and changing of character and kind of this transition into like a greedier version of him, and he kind of becomes more of a piece of shit, so he cheats on his wife instead of being with the girl that was with him from the beginning, whatever. And I get all that. But the idea is supposed to be that he's cheating on her because Margot Robbie's so attractive. However, I got into an argument with my friends, and you know what? Here's an actual hot take, okay? I'm sick of people saying, oh, this is a hot take, and like it's something everyone agrees with. No, here's an actual hot take. 0 people agree with me on this. I told them at the time, this plotline doesn't really make sense because Margot Robbie is the less attractive of the two. Kristen Milioti is much more attractive than Margot Robbie. And not only have I had 0 people agree with me on this, but both my friends at the time, who I got into an hour-and-a-half argument with, and people who have had this come up since, right, if we're talking about the movie, either call me contrarian or lying. They think I'm making it up or having an argument just for fun. None of these things are true. These are my actual beliefs, okay? I believe this 100%. I will stand by it. I defend it and have defended it many times against my friends who accuse me of all sorts of things whenever this subject comes up. But if anything, this just goes to prove that I'm right about the types thing, because I actually have a type here that is clearly overriding something that everyone else views as obvious, to the point where people say, like I said, that I'm lying, or someone will accuse me of being like virtue signally, because for some people on the left, it's like a sin to like girls with blue eyes and blonde hair, and a virtue to like any features that are more ethnic. But that's also a dogshit argument against it, because not only is that not something that I espouse, it doesn't even make sense. Like, it's okay that I have a different type than people. In fact, I prefer it on some level because I will absolutely take less competition to date a woman with big brown eyes. Not that Kristen Milioti is looking my way, but you get the point, right? That subcategory of women with big brown eyes, if they get compared to women with blue eyes and people unanimously say the blue-eyed girls are hotter or whatever, that's good for me, okay? That's less competition. It's like when I see a hot gay guy and I'm like, buddy, thank God. Everyone else gets mad. They're like, it's against nature. Hey, man, thank God you're not my competition. How about that? Regardless, you're not my type as a term to filter somebody has become so non-specific that it is dangerously close to becoming vacuous altogether. It is about to mean nothing if people keep using it in the way they're using it. Also, keep in mind, for as much as I criticize people using "you're not my type" as a catch-all filter, realistically, I completely understand, of course, why people would do it. Otherwise, the person telling the truth to this person feels like shit, and then on the person receiving the news side, they are not better off for hearing the truth in an emotional sense quite yet. Maybe down the road they are, but in the moment they hear it, they are going to feel like shit. Like, realistically, the person doing the filtering just doesn't have the incentives in place for them to instead choose the awkward, uncomfortable, bad feeling of telling somebody the truth when they could instead lie via vagueness to this person, make the other person feel better for it, never see them again, and then on their end feel like a good person for letting them down easy. Otherwise, you tell them the truth, what are the effects? The other person hates you, because newsflash, as much as people say they like the truth, they don't like the wholly unadulterated truth. They're going to hate you for it. And you are going to feel like an asshole for it, and you might even develop a negative reputation for telling them the truth, because people aren't going to be like, hey, just so you know, this person turned me down, but they're really admirable because they told me honestly what they thought about me. They're going to be like, no, that person was an asshole. And you might say, well, yeah, but there's reasons, or there's ways, I should say. There's reasons and ways, really, to tell somebody the truth in a way that is soft and kind and good and all that. And that's fine, but then you're just going to end up, you're eerily close to the whole, hey, you're just like not my type thing and it's not going to work out. Like, you're so close to that telling them the truth, if it's that soft, probably also doesn't help them that much. I can't think of a way in my mind to tell them and also play that middle ground of like, it's going to make them feel good, and it's going to benefit them by being truthful enough to the reality of the situation that they can assess it from there. Like, I don't know how those two things are going to coexist. Instead, just lie and never feel the downstream effects from it, right? Unless, of course, you believe contemporary psychology, which seems to state that lying to anybody, including yourself, is bad for yourself. In that case, it would still be in your self-interest to tell the truth. Something to think about. There's somewhat of a difference between niceness and kindness here, too. Like, it's nice to be polite to someone and good-mannered and respectful, but it's kind and thoughtful, I would even say, to provide them with the truth, especially when no one else is telling them, and especially when it's hard to say it. Like, it's nice to say, oh, you're not my type, but it's kind to say, hey, I'm not very attracted to you, plus you were really smelly and itchy. You kept on itching yourself, and you mentioned lizard people 3 times, which is 3 times too many on a first date, let alone any date, actually. It's 3 times too many in general. And you kept on mentioning how it was weird that your boss had space heaters and that you think he was a lizard, but I doubt it. I just think he has space heaters. And you said he went on vacation to a place with sand. That's pretty normal too. Again, I don't think he's a lizard. That person can then take that and go, well, I really like talking about lizard people, so you're right, we're not compatible. Or they can take that and go, oh, I can fix that. That's like easy to be kind versus nice, to tell someone that, hey, you need to work on hygiene, your breath smelled or something, or you kept talking about lizard people. But on the flip side, the much harder one, and the one I'm unsure about, is being like, oh, I wasn't physically attracted to you, which is true, and a real reason why you're filtering them. And I think that they would deserve to know that, because then they know that they are actually being filtered and not some bullshit reason like that they had a dog, or that you had too much studying to do. But that's just because I think that there's value in knowing the actual reasons instead of having to spend time guessing on why it is you were actually filtered by someone. It's a bit like this graph where niceness means a slight increase in temporary pleasure with long-term harm. Whereas kindness is a decrease in the short-term pleasure, but has beneficial longer-term effects, which could be a good case for always telling people the truth. At least that's what I thought, until I realized that you can just infinitely spam lies in order to break the system completely, which very well may be a viable meta. So if you see me out here telling your mom that she looks skinny, mind your business. Outside, rainy day, shoot, Tanner in car. I'm
in here. Oh, dude,
Yep.
I'm exhausted. I'm so hungry and tired.
The guy getting 40% of my channel revenue is in the car on his phone. He's talking about food. He's on his phone.
Bro, I got this. I already set the camera.
Fuck it, I'll do this tape with the car. Keep in mind though, I'm not fully expecting someone to go on a date and then go afterwards tell the person, hey, by the way, your face is ugly and your vibes suck. It's like, all right, the person's probably going to step into oncoming traffic immediately after that statement. Plus, I'm not even sure if telling someone the complete truth like that is even the right thing to do. I'm a bit agnostic on that as of yet. I'm starting to think that metas and self-interest will continually break any hypothetical good faith that we suggest people go into the dating marketplace with. Because not only are you affected by the meta itself, but you're also affected by the perception. Okay, so the meta part would be figuring out what's effective in the dating marketplace and using that to optimize for getting dates. There's a car coming by, you guys are gonna deal with it. But the perception part of it is that after even getting the dates, even if you are effective, you now have to apparently go to social media, and now you got to figure out the perception side, and that's incorporated as part of the meta. How ought my husband be acting? You know what I mean? How ought my girlfriend be treating me? Whatever. But not based on like how you feel. It's a reflection of how other people feel on social media. If he doesn't do this, he doesn't care. If she doesn't do that, she's actually not into you. She's into somebody else. Like, it's all sourced through social media, which are either people lying to themselves by doing something contrived and then going to the comments and seeing all the comments and using that as reinforcement to affirm their belief that, oh, it's true. Oh my God, we really are such a cute couple, because all the comments are like, you guys are so perfect. This is so cute. You guys are so good together. And they can use that as reinforcement to affirm to themselves, we are in fact compatible. We are in fact good to each other, because social media said so, right? We put it out on social media and the fucking judge has spoken. The jury has given their sentence, compatible, cute, loving couple, whatever. So then they get to believe that, even though they're contrivedly doing all these things in the first place. Or, and this is rare, or it's a rare, loving, actually compatible couple, which nobody is selecting for anyways right now. So when people copy this, for example, they're doing the contrived people at least, they're just replicating what an actual loving couple does. So once again, the meta selects for a simulacrum there, or it's a separate simulacrum in that it's created by the people doing it contrivedly, this own social media marketplace of people doing the things for the camera that nobody does in the first place anyways. So then it becomes a thing of like, oh, well, I need my husband to do this so he shows me that he loves me. So I'll do this also on social media.
If your girlfriend asks you to peel an orange, her body cam is on, exam time, pencils down. Grab it, peel it, because America's watching. And if she asks you, oh, name a woman, you name her. And if your love language is physical touch, hers better be words of affirmation. And if there's a string, you know it's invisible, baby. Because love is dead and the cameras are rolling, so let's put on a show. Oh.
When an irresistible force such as you meets an old immovable object like me.
Another thing that people like to do is something approximating a selection bias of sorts. This one's going to seem more like a cope than an actual part of the dating meta. However, because it influences the dating meta so much and like the cultural conversations that we have around dating, it actually, in that way, is a bit of a meta pick in and of itself, because it's such an influential factor on the way that people talk about the dating meta or dating in general. There are a couple different ways that this selection bias plays out, but the most common is when a person will willingly engage with a specific archetype of person. All right, they are selecting for this in their filters, like we talked about earlier. And then when they have a bad experience, they will attribute the flaws of that shitty person to either a group at large or to dating in general. So for example, a woman might choose to engage with a guy who treats her like shit and then be like, men are trash, I hate men. Okay, I don't know that NY. I've never met either of you guys a day in my life, so I don't know why I am grouped in with that. I mean, I do kind of. I'll take a stab at it. Basically, we have pattern-seeking brains, so what we prefer to do is take the behaviors of one person and apply that to the group at large because it saves us time, right? And we prefer that easy categorization to nuance because it helps in the way that if you had to solve a new problem every time by starting from first principles, starting from scratch, instead of making comparisons on how things are, it would be fucking tedious as all get out. So instead we're like, all right, well, we'll just kind of assume that this person is like this person because roughly it does track. But where that breaks is instead of dealing with the average person and kind of only attributing average traits to the average person, instead people have shitty filters and select for bad people and then make it everybody else's problem. Now, I'm sympathetic in the sense that nuance can be really hard to determine when to use. Sometimes it would save our life historically, and sometimes it would kill us historically. So it's kind of tough to delineate between like when is good to use nuance versus when is bad to use nuance. Example would be like nuance was key to our survival for delineating between poisonous mushrooms and regular edible mushrooms. That requires nuance and did help with us. But on the flip side, it can get you into a lot of trouble. Like there were people in Pompeii who escaped only because they left as soon as the volcano erupted. They were like, fuck this. This obviously looks bad. I'm getting out of here. I'm not going to sit and see. And other people were like, I wonder how dangerous this is. Let me assess the situation for a bit and come to a nuanced understanding of just how dangerous this actually is. And by the time people made that decision or tried to collect their belongings from their house, they were flooded by, I think, pyroclastic flow and just killed them instantly because it was gases traveling at like 700 kilometers per hour. And these people basically ended up getting burned so badly by these hot gases that their brains turned into glass. There's some wild stuff surrounding Pompeii, but the point is that the lack of nuance in that situation saved the people who left earlier. So nuance was not always an optimal survival trait in the wild because taking time to determine whether or not something was a threat could have costed you your life. Whereas assuming something was always a threat meant that at the most you missed out on an opportunity. If you heard a rustling in the bush and assumed it was a saber-toothed tiger behind the bush, when in all actuality it was just a gazelle, but you didn't stick around to find out and instead just fled from it out of fear anyways, you may have missed a meal. Not ideal, sure, whatever, but probably not a life or death scenario in that case. However, if you were unsure about whether or not it was a gazelle or a saber-tooth, and then so you peeked behind the bush to investigate and it turns out it was a saber-toothed tiger, you were dead. It was too risky to be nuanced, and that applies in some situations today too. If I am in a bad neighborhood at 2 a.m., I am assuming that anyone on the streets is a potential threat instead of hearing somebody call me over and being like, I wonder what this young man wants with me. Let me go talk to him and find out. That'll get you killed, right? Those situations don't always require nuance. Sometimes it's best to assume the worst in that case, right? Just for your safety. However, in dating, that intuition can be fooled whenever selection bias is at play. Because then you are solely responsible for selecting the shitty people that you then extrapolate out to everyone else and assume that they also have those shitty traits. You assume that everyone else is equally as shitty as them, when in reality, it's a you thing. You love bad bitches, that's your fucking problem. A slightly hyperbolic, but good example of this happening is something that happened in a conversation with my dad a few years ago. So I was talking to him, and we were in this garage area of our old house, and he was showing me where he had hidden some money because he didn't trust banks. It doesn't matter, but regardless, he was like, it's in this thing. You can push up the ceiling tiles and reach in and find it. And I was like, okay, there's cash in there, all right? And then he goes, yeah, on the other side of this, on the opposite side, there's also meth. So you don't need that, but just so you know what's in there, I guess. And I was like, why the fuck is there meth in the building? And he was like, well, no, it's not for me, obviously, but it's for the girls I hang out with. This was true. Okay, if you saw them, you were like, yeah, that tracks. And then for him, it wasn't really his style. He was more into cocaine and riding his motorcycle and partying and steroids and bodybuilding and martial arts and stuff. He's more of like an Arnold archetype than anything, like 80s partying, get big, do coke type of thing. So he was like, yeah, it's not for me. And that's true, because he just would have not told me about it, that it was there in the first place. But he's like, yeah, I keep it here for the girls. And then I was like, well, you could just, what if you selected for girls who didn't do meth as a shocking idea? And he laughed and was like, buddy, all girls are on meth. Which for him was true. Not even like in his mind was true, but in reality was true, because that was what he was selecting for. So for that period, for the last however many years that he's going to these, Akron party places, that's probably true. Most of the girls there are probably on meth. Which you could scoff at all you'd like and think like, oh, how ridiculous. What an absurd tale. What an absurd thought process to think that all girls are on meth. But that's also you whenever you complain about the opposite sex and specific traits that you've dealt with, right? So when a girl goes, oh man, men are trash, I hate men, all of them have communication issues, they'll ghost you, or they'll say they want a relationship just to sleep with you and then end up, not actually wanting anything serious, and they have, emotional problems, whatever the fuck. All you're saying there to me is all women are on meth. Right? That's what you're communicating, just on your end of the spectrum, because that's what you're selecting for, whether it's through the environments that you're in, like in my dad's case, whatever, when he was partying, or whether it's in the people you select for and the traits you select for. In fact, some of these were so highly selected for that they've just become incorporated into part of the meta. You heard me mention earlier, I think it was in part 2, how I talked about how, listen, guys might do this when, they're talking about filtering. They won't tell a girl they're filtering them, and they will just so they can keep getting sexual access or whatever. Or any of these things, being part of the meta means it was so highly selected for and successful that doing that behavior became something that people would emulate that wouldn't naturally go towards that behavior. But they realize that it's successful, and they want to not do things like, why would you do things that are ineffective? So in order to be effective, they copy that, emulate that, and that becomes part of the meta. That's how it becomes more frequent, and that's how it becomes so widespread that you hear people talk about this as if it's a thing from all men. Should men do this behavior? Probably not. Should people reward this behavior with sex? Also, probably not, especially if you don't like that behavior. Why would you reward a behavior that you don't like? Anyways, getting back to the selection bias part in particular, I want to show you a clip, and then we're going to talk about it for a second, okay? This is a clip from Clavicular. I know that's what everyone has been waiting for in this video, to watch kick streamer clips on here. So, here's that.
And it's like, here's my thing about that, is I enjoy to a reasonable extent that like group of girls that I hang out with. Like, I don't actually mind being around them, so that's why. But they would, it's unlikely that they would want to be around me if it wasn't for the fucking, viewership I had. God forbid I asked them to hang out off stream. Oh, dude, like, not a fucking chance. I'm just a jester. She manipulated me. I keep falling for it. I can't do this. Fucking bitches just want to fucking take advantage of me because I don't understand. I don't understand the world. I just do all this shit. They take advantage of me and they don't give a fuck. None of these girls give a shit about me.
A lot of the conversation surrounding the dating marketplace is directly descendant or downstream from online audiences watching their favorite influencers interact with other people who also just want to be influencers, and then taking those characteristics they see in those characters and applying them broadly. Like, people will act like I'm legitimately supposed to watch these and be like, what? The 19-year-old woman who's an Instagram influencer isn't an intellectual powerhouse? What the fuck? I guess I'll now be getting all of my life advice exclusively via podcasters who wear extra small tees. And that's what so much of the conversation and the meta nowadays about dating is downstream from. People watching content made for the purpose of entertainment and hyperbole, trying to sell you on negativity, because none of us touch quite enough grass to know that's not exactly real or it's not how they present it. And then the dating market shifts in favor of accounting for and balancing that self-referential loop. but it's not a real dating representation. You're just watching 21-year-olds go to the club. It's like watching Jersey Shore and being like, hey, did you know that half of the male population in the United States are Italian men who tan for 6 hours a day? This must be why the economy is so bad. No, man, you're watching entertainment. You don't have to worry about your doctor being Stone Cold Steve Austin just because you saw that within the purview of entertainment. Or at least you shouldn't. But that's not as reflective of reality when we're talking about the dating discourse. It's fortunately and unfortunately true that media influences how we view and interact with life on some level. And realistically, it always has. But it's gotten worse since 2020 because now everyone's main hobby seems to be consuming social media content. I'd imagine in 1982, if you hated women, you had to find your own reasons to get there. Obviously, there was some amount of social influence, and there certainly was media influence, but it was nothing like it is today, where you can now like a singular tweet about a subject, and then are inundated with random people's content being pumped into your feed so you can inject their beliefs directly into your brain and make them your thoughts now. Overall, just practicing selection bias was less accessible in the past. So if you hated men in the year 1950, you couldn't filter as heavily as you can now on your phone. So you were forced to also interact with, in real life, non-shitty men, good men, instead of getting your experiences purely through your selection bias, which is either, number one, seeing posts on your feed about bad dating experiences online that were posted in an attempt to garner internet engagement, and that reaffirms your beliefs, which feel good, so you like the post, which tells the algorithm to give you more posts like that, which reaffirms your beliefs even further, until you live in an online world entirely constructed by yourself based on what makes you feel most comfortable. And being comfortable is a nice feeling, but if you're always comfortable and you're never challenged on your beliefs, they'll stay the same forever, which is sad, because your beliefs, for the most part, should evolve with time. If you're not shaping your beliefs purely through selection bias and hyperbolic content online, you can still accidentally walk into another pitfall with selection bias in dating, which is number two, getting your views through the shitty men or women that you've selected and or filtered for on your dating apps and then complaining about it online, which other people then view and then shape their views on the dating market accordingly. But more on that in a minute. For now, I'd like to address the counter argument, which is, yeah, but Cody, these shitty women or men that are being seen a lot, isn't it possible that they're only being seen a lot because they're common, so that's why they keep popping up so much? Kind of. There is an argument in which people will say it was always this bad, but people are just now getting an insight into it with the internet, which is maybe true of some things, but I disagree with it on the point of the dating marketplace or the views on the opposite gender or whatever. I think that the internet is responsible for a large portion of opinions there, and not in a good way, because the internet doesn't select for what's the most nuanced or what's the most true. It selects for what's the most entertaining and what keeps you engaged with the apps for the longest. If you need evidence of this, you can talk to two people with differing opinions that got most of their information online, and they will give you two entirely different set of facts. It is not the case that they'll just say, hey, listen, we might disagree on the normative extension of these, on how to solve this problem, but we agree on the problem itself, what it is, what the facts surrounding the circumstances are, and we just disagree on how to go about it because we think different things would produce different good outcomes. That's not the case. If you talk to any of these people, you'll realize very quickly that they have a different factual substrate. They disagree on the underlying facts vehemently. Which I only clarify all that to say that, to I guess, disillusion people of the belief that social media is some beacon of truth that will point people, towards true north, towards the actual, like I said, factual substrate. We will find truth through discourse type of it's just not true. It's cool, in theory it sounds cool, and freedom of speech is awesome, but it is not true that through everyone talking and posting on social media that we will arrive at some universal truth and come to an agreement. It's just so apparently not the case. The experiment's been tried, and it failed on that front. It did succeed on the front that it makes a lot of funny shit, which is arguably just as valuable. So there you go. There's some silver lining there. Now, the internet is not entirely wrong about the dating market. I do also believe that it has gotten worse. I think if you've observed it within the last 5 years or so, you can also feel it. But I would say that it's nearly the direct fault of the internet, so I don't know how much credit it gets for recognizing it, since it's also the source of all of this. I'm also not sure if humans were meant to have infinite choice. I don't think we're happy with that. I think it breaks some people's brains in the same way that if you go to a restaurant with 5 items and another one with 45 items, you're going to have an easier time choosing on the 5-item menu. That doesn't speak to the quality of your choice, but some people are happier not having a choice in the first place, or not having as much of a choice in the first place. Aristotle said that people, some people are natural slaves. I'm kidding. We're not going there in this video. Once I get more into Aristotle, you might see me pop out with some similar thoughts on that though, but we'll see. We'll see what I think. Regardless, I'm obviously sympathetic to the worldview that the dating marketplace is bad currently. It's part of why I made this video. However, it's also heavily skewed and hyperbolized by the internet. So while I am still willing to accept as a possibility that the reason we see so many shitty people is because there's simply a lot of shitty people now, I also think that there are some questions we need to ask ourselves first about that, just to see if we're experiencing some bias due to the content we consume online, as well as afterwards, recognizing the source of the shitty people that do in fact exist. And, we're going to try to get an answer as to why there's seemingly way more now than ever. Regarding the question on how much your thoughts are being influenced by internet content that is not representative of real life, here are some questions to ask yourself, and actually try to pause and answer these for yourself, okay? Number 1, how much time do you spend watching content online that reaffirms your already held beliefs? If you're spending no time challenging these beliefs of yours, then that's something you should try to adjust moving forward. I think you should go out and seek the opposite of your viewpoint just to see how it feels. See if it registers at all. If you have a negative view, go seek out some positive content. Or even if you have a fully positive view, that's delusional too. Whatever group you're attracted to does in fact suck sometimes, and it's okay to mix in some critical views to balance yourself. I mean that. If you don't know what's out there, you don't know what's appealing to you or what registers or what you actually believe to be true. Like the fact that gay men are allowed to freely talk about how the gays suck sometimes, but straight people aren't really allowed to do that in the same way makes zero sense. You should be allowed to take some issues with the group you're dating. Just don't let them get skewed or all-consuming. It's the equivalent of being like, yeah, you should be healthy, but you don't have to never have alcohol. Having a drink with friends on the weekend is fine. Just try not to be an alcoholic.
Stand your base. Stand your base. The space is your space, yeah? Go ahead, carry on. There's no one doing it like me. Nobody. I make more dough than a bakery, I do, yeah? Get me out of this table, you man. Connor, take the glasses off. For sure, no problem. Might put down 12 cans on this stream.
Number 2, are you spending significantly more time watching dating content than actually going on dates or interacting with people in real life? Exclusively dealing with the world through content leads to a poor theory of mind. Like, we all found it shocking and upsetting about what Anthony Bourdain did on that island, but regardless of what you want to say, the guy was very wise, and I think that wisdom that he espoused came from real-life interactions with many diverse people while traveling, and I mean diverse in terms of not like you interact with 50 black people and 20 brown people, and you're like, I know life now. I mean difference in thought, different cultures, difference in thought, difference in their philosophies on life, and underlying psychology and all that. I think developing your theory of mind about people and assigning archetypes from there is a good way to do it. Number 3 is, out of the last 3 dates you went on, how many of the people were actually like this? How many seemed relatively normal and fun? This question got me to go, oh, that's right. I actually haven't been on any dates recently. I'm just liking tweets about the dating marketplace. Number 4, do the influencers from the content you watch have a vested interest in selling you on negativity or a negative worldview? And do those influencers also try to sell you on solutions for the negative worldview that they just presented to you? If so, this can be a red flag. It's actually not always a red flag. Some people are just trying to change the world through their ideals and whatever. So like obviously they're going to try to fucking sell you on them. In a way, I'm doing that in this video, although these are more descriptive claims than anything. I'd say I kept it more descriptive in this video. Whatever. That's not necessarily a red flag, but it can be, okay? Keep in mind when someone's selling you on negativity and then selling you on the solution to that, it's a little fishy, I think. Just be aware of that, okay? Try to fact check them a little extra, if you will. Number 5, what would it take for you to change your current negative perception about dating? Again, I want you to actually answer these in your head, okay? Would it be personal interactions? Would it be a shift in the culture at large? Would it be new data that emerges? This one has more of a flexible answer. There's not like a correct answer here. I'm only saying that you need to know this for yourself. You should always know what would change your mind on a thing. So it's important to ask yourself and know for yourself, if you have a negative view on the dating marketplace, what would change your mind on that? The reason you need to ask yourself these, and the reason that I'm so particular about these, is asking yourself these questions are a barrier, if you will, okay? A block, a palisade. Is that how you say it, right? The sticks that are spiked and face outwards on forts. They are barriers to your mind being fucked by people who are, you know, trying to engagement farm or just get attention online or whatever, and posting these stories that make people change their views on the dating marketplace and also impact the dating marketplace. And this affects the selection bias thing, because what I initially said was that people were selecting for bad traits and then attributing that to groups at large. And that's true. But there is also a truth to the fact that the dating marketplace has gotten worse, but that's largely through selection bias of online content and that you're choosing to engage with certain negative content, okay? But the problem is that those people engaging in certain negative content create a feedback loop, because the internet affects the way people interface with and view the world so much now. And the online entertainment spaces initially selected for people that just weren't fully representative of how most people actually were in real life, but that affected the way people viewed and acted in real life, okay? So it influenced everyone online. In the sense that if all you're seeing is, oh my God, shit's so bad out there, the dating marketplace is so bad, these people are awful, whatever, all of that influence that is online through either content that is made for engagement farming or just engagement in general, someone trying to have their moment, whatever, so they hop on TikTok and talk about their bad date with this one person. That's fine, that'll happens, whatever. But then people see that and they bring with them that bitterness into the real world from the internet. That's what the whole Wizard Liz situation was. It was based off her shitty selection bias that women then took and said, like, this is a problem for all men.
The Wizard Liz.
The Wizard Liz got cheated on 4 months pregnant.
Oh my God! I hate men. The Wizard Liz, out of all people. Mother Liz was cheated on.
I repeat, the Wizard Liz.
Liz is intelligent, beautiful.
This bum single-handedly created millions of more female villains.
And then I was thinking to myself, why is it that everyone is always obsessed with me?
Wizard Liz is considered probably the biggest female life coach. She offers a lot of advice.
I know that you guys need my help. That's why I'm here.
She got caught up in a scandal because she met a man. They got engaged.
Within?
I think it was like 7 months. And she was 4 months pregnant in this relationship. And she got cheated on. Being super fair, they'd met 4 years prior, but both of them started dating other people, so they stopped talking.
I don't care.
And then, yeah.
I don't care. It's 7 months.
Okay. Ordinarily, she's just a 26-year-old who made a really dumb fucking decision. A lot of people make those decisions. And normally, if someone's going through having just been cheated on, you would just think, go grieve, go spend your time, figure your life out, and then move afterwards. The issue is that she's a life coach who speaks like she has the answers.
Yeah.
She speaks with a certain level of hubris, where she talks to young women and says, this is how you get what you want. This is how you get the man that you want, the marriage that you want, the life that you want.
Okay, so you clicked on this video because you want to be confident. Do you want to walk into any meeting, any room, with all eyes on you? Do you want to attract that partner that you desire because your confidence radiates and they cannot do anything but be near you? Do you want to walk into every single room and have all eyes on you, even if you're just in your pajamas, because that's the energy you radiate?
And she speaks with a tremendous amount of confidence, and she influences all these people. And this is another case of the blind leading the blind. You don't wait any time before getting married. You get married incredibly young. You get married to somebody who's also a big influencer.
Who said I love you first?
Oh my God, I told this woman that I loved her within 36 hours of knowing her.
Yeah,
this is your supreme dating coach.
All of these are verifiable things that took place in real life. And so they seem, at face value to people and to fans of hers, to be representative of the dating market at large. But you have to understand that a huge factor in this is her selection bias and how that informs the men that she interacts with. It obviously sucks super bad that she got cheated on, but you should not extrapolate this specific person, this celebrity, dealing with a shitty dude as dudes just being shitty ontologically. Which sounds like a kind of absurd thing for me to say on its face, but I say that for a reason, okay? I've looked at some of the responses to this, and I'm going to show you them in a second here. But yeah, people are taking this as to be like, the dating marketplace is so shit. This is proof. This reaffirms my beliefs. But I don't think that's the way that you should probably be looking at this specific situation. It seems like he had a lot of red flags going in.
I swear, guys, when I met Landon, immediately I thought I would want a family with this guy. And he also told me immediately when we hanged out in Santorini, I knew you were gonna be my wife.
I literally told her within 36 hours, I was like, look, this is gonna sound like a lot, and I'm sorry, because I know it's weird, but I know I'm supposed to marry you.
The idea that you guys see this behavior, you don't think it's the biggest red flag is crazy to me. And the fact that you counsel people and you don't think this is strange is also crazy to me. Go ahead.
And the thing that happened is that if you look at her face, she's bragging.
Him saying, I knew I was supposed to marry you is even crazier statement. How could you do that without knowing somebody? How could you just say, I know I'm supposed to be with you? Who is the you? What does you mean in this situation? How do you even know what you is?
But it's a serious question.
Like when someone says, I'm supposed to marry you, don't know me. How could you say that?
But it's really hard for people to separate. Like if you see this, if you're a fan of hers, and you see an attractive woman who says she's had no problems ever dating and that she gets guys to buy her stuff and that they take her on trips and all this stuff and she's the prize. If you see all that and then she still gets cheated on, of course your worldview is going to crumble. You're going to go, oh, it's all these men, they all suck.
I've never had that. It comes to me very easily. I know a lot of women in my life that always try to look for a partner, try to look for love, and that's like their whole goal, and they never attract it. And they then ask me like, Liz, how come you attract it so easily, like whenever you want? And it's like, I don't have that desperation for it. Like, that's why it comes to me.
So you see the way these people talk about these events anytime they happen, and it's like they're making it their mission to bring their bitterness into the dating marketplace or into the dating metas because of some online influencer who probably has a problem with their selection bias.
Don't like women. Men like men.
Are men just evil?
I don't care how pretty you are. I don't care how smart you are. The second you become in proximity to a man, you are signing up to be humiliated.
This isn't just a cheating scandal. This is a collective heartbreak. So many of us have been watching Wizard Liz for years, not as fans, but as women who were healing right alongside her. She's been a big sister, a guide, a lifeline. She gave us strength when we were at our lowest. She taught us how to protect our energy, raise our standards, and believe that we were worthy of more. Okay? And these are just some of the videos of people reacting to this shit.
The comments.
No, there's videos.
Oh, videos. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
People are doing whole ass videos.
I did my research.
Oh, my God.
There is no way, like, I'm so pissed off. Okay, this didn't happen to me, but I feel like I just got cheated on. There is no way that ratty-ass looking Mickey Mouse bitch cheated on I repeat, the Wizard Liz.
Wizard Liz just posted that she was cheated on by her fiance Landon, while her now ex-fiance, the Wizard Liz, out of all people.
Liz is intelligent, beautiful.
How many times have you seen a man that looks this corny, this goofy, put a woman who looks like this in this goober's point of view? What else could he possibly get?
You are telling me Mother Liz was cheated on while she was 4 months pregnant, when she decided to actually show him online, tell the world that she's in love with him, he chose to have you seen her? She's so gorgeous, so confident, so beautiful. Literally everything that you would want in a person, she has that. And this person was like, someone else too. What will actually convince them to stick to one? If that woman had to go through this, us mortals, us little peasants, how are we gonna survive?
That's how her fans been talking.
Oh, God.
By the way, the irony is not lost on me to say, hey, it is a problem that this many people are using online influencers or videos that they see of people online to influence their thoughts on that group at large, and then use these videos, which are videos that people made online, which I am then taking and interpreting and saying, hey, there might be a problem with this group at large, the group being people being influenced by videos online. Kind of a meta thing going on. But the problem I have with this is these people are admitting that it is affecting their real life view on things. So it is not isolated to an event online and being like, oh, this isn't representative of real life. Everyone here is saying, hey, this, just so you know, is influencing the way I'm interacting with and treating the dating marketplace in real life. This is directly influencing how I'm interfacing with the real world.
I'm convinced that all men cheat at this point. Just woke up to the most devastating news. The wizard Liz just posted that her fiance Landon cheated on her while she is 4 months pregnant. 4 months Number one, I would argue that she could have done significantly better than Landon. And because he also knew that, he wanted to humiliate her. And as someone who's been cheated on before, it's never your fault. It's not because you weren't pretty enough. It's not because you weren't smart enough. It's not because you weren't rich enough. Men, just in general, cheat. If you get cheated on, never, ever, ever blame yourself. There is nothing wrong with you and there is nothing you could have done to prevent him from cheating. In general, most men cheat. So I've given up on finding a man who doesn't cheat. Now I can look the other way if you give me things, okay? Shara 7 got into my head. Once I understood that men are lustful beings and I can't be with them for love and loyalty because they do not have it, even when you're pregnant, especially when you're pregnant, I have decided that I can look the other way if you give me things. Okay? Give me things and what? Huh?
I foresee this being her own personal 9/11, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, hopefully you see my problem in this section about how the internet and influencers in particular can have a problem personally with their selection bias and how that can influence their audience's perception of the dating marketplace so that they take with them some form of bitterness or they're on guard more or they're less genuine or they try to gamify it in a way that they wouldn't had they not been influenced by this person's poor selection bias. The problem there being that it is a self-referential loop that becomes reality. But I'm not going to go too much into that. The video is too long already. So those are just a few of the weird implications that are either behind or downstream from some of the aspects within the dating meta that crossed my mind recently. You'll probably notice that many of these don't have an exact wide-scale solution that can be implemented. For example, you probably can't be like, we're going to make you guys choose partners better, because it's like telling people we're going to make you watch better TV shows or movies. It's not going to, you can't do that. You probably just have to let people make their decisions that aren't in their best interests because that's their prerogative. It'd have to be implemented on some personal level, but then that doesn't fix the dating meta at large unless society at large makes that change. So some of these things just don't have solutions. Others do. I really don't feel like writing an end to this that's succinct and all encapsulating, since there's too much to cover on dating and dating metas that I feel like this wasn't even scratching the surface, but just kind of glossing over it really, which on its face seems absurd because this video is a goddamn hour and a half long almost, but it's true. I also initially wanted to do a part 4 and part 5, which would be one whole section on the way in which people advertise / sell themselves in the current dating meta. And I mean, like, you know, they sell the idea of them to other partners is what I mean. And then another section on men versus women's theory of mind on each other. And I wanted to go into the paths on which you can walk to develop a good or bad theory of mind on the opposite sex, or if that's possible and whatever. But this video is long enough, and keep in mind, I already cut about 30 minutes of different caveating and explaining because I felt it was too long already. And I was trying to keep it under an hour, which I still didn't achieve. Oh well, maybe in the future I'll just say fuck it and keep everything. Who knows? But anyways, I'm back to making videos. More to come in the slight future, so I'll see you there. Talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.